Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeannie Kitchens with Illinois WorkNet. Thank you for joining me. It's a couple minutes ahead of 1 o'clock, so we'll wait until 1 o'clock to officially get started. But I just wanted to do a quick sound check to make sure that each of you can hear me. I've got all of you muted, so you don't have to worry about your background noise, so don't worry about muting because I've already done that for you. And what I'd like to do is to make sure all of you can hear me. On the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see an icon. There's a picture of a person with their hand raised. If you can click and raise your hand, that would be great. Oh, good. I'm going to move this out on the screen for just a moment so everyone can see who's participating this afternoon, and you can see all the hands raising. Many of you have participated with our webinars in the past, and you're used to doing that, but we've recently changed them, so you have two options now when you participate. You can participate via listening to just speakers and then using the chat pod, and there's a chat pod located on your screen just below the picture of me. And if you want to just type something in there now, you type into the little white box on the bottom of the chat pod, and then you click the arrow adjacent to it. So throughout the meeting, we will use that chat pod to communicate. And then some of you called, maybe you don't have speakers or you preferred to get on the call. And for you callers, there'll be a couple of points in the webinar where I will open the floor, meaning you'll be able to talk on the phone. Hi, Mike. And hey, Dee. And ask questions and use the chat as well. So those are your two options. So if you've called and you'd rather listen with your speakers, you can do that. Or if you're listening with your speakers and you'd rather call, you can go either way. I'm going to go ahead and move that off the screen. The call number is on the board on your screen there. And let me just do a real quick time check. I've got 1 o'clock. So I am going to officially begin the meeting. So for those of you who didn't catch me when I was doing my sound check, this is Jeannie Kitchens with Illinois WorkNet. And again, thank you so much for joining me, and happy Friday, everybody. Yay. And thank you for joining me and ending your week with me. I truly appreciate it. We're going to move at a fairly brisk pace to cover all the materials this afternoon. And there are a number of materials available to you. If you look on your screen, there's a meeting materials pod toward the bottom. If you want to download those materials, you can save them to your computer or print them. For those of you who are going green, you do not have to print them. It's at your option. If you like to have things handy when you participate with a webinar, fine, go ahead and print them. But if you did not, don't worry. They'll be there for you when we get through with the webinar. I'm going to go ahead and move my little note here off the screen. And what I want to do to begin is just go through some background information using a PowerPoint. I'm going to go through some background information. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm going to keep the chat open. I'll open the telephone line to take caller questions. And then we're going to go do a demo of the IWTS system and kind of repeat the process again, where I will open the floor to questions and I'll ask you questions as well. So most of the meeting we will have the pod open, the chat pod open on the left-hand side of the screen, and I see that I'm blurry on the webcam. You know, I've got one of these cameras that is auto-focused, and I did actually try to change it, and it won't let me. So I will be going away in a minute. I'm sorry if I'm blurry. I look clear on my screen, but you won't see me throughout the whole time. So let me go ahead and, first of all, I'm going to cover up the meeting materials. Actually, you know what? I'll get rid of me since I'm blurry anyhow. There I go. I'll move the meeting materials over to the left-hand side of the screen. So I know Cindy was trying to download them. So don't panic. They're right over there on the left-hand side. I'm going to make that PowerPoint a little bit bigger. So I can keep the chat pod open. I'm going to keep the PowerPoint on the right-hand side here. But if anybody cannot see the PowerPoint and you want me to make it bigger, let me know, and we will cover up the chat pod. Okay, great. Thanks, Cindy. So let's take a look at our agenda this afternoon. We have a lot of information to cover. And we're going to do some introductions and background. We're going to take a look, just a little short look at the WIA policy information, although I do want to stress that this webinar is not about policy at all. We just need to mention it because policy does require use of the system. And then we're going to take a quick look at the project process and workflow. As I already said, we're going to do a demonstration. And when we do the demonstration, we're going to focus on submitting a project plan. That's going to be our focus this afternoon. And we will look at adding an incumbent worker, part 2. We'll kind of peek at that, but really, if you are a note taker, then this is what you need to write down at this point. Right now, your goal is if you have a project, to submit a project plan. When you submit a project plan, it does not include your incumbent workers because normally you would submit a plan before you started your project. I realize that many of you have already started your project, so you do already have workers. But what I want to do right now is focus on submitting a plan, and I want you to submit your plans without identifying your workers, and we're going to come back and identify our workers. We are going to take part 3 off the agenda. It's too much to cover, and you have to submit your project plan in order to do a quarterly report. So what we'll do is probably in about a week, we'll offer a follow-up webinar. I'm sure we can do it fairly quickly. I think we could do it in about 30 minutes, and we'll go over how to do your quarterly report. So the incumbent worker tracking system will be used to track and report all incumbent worker training projects for grants issued by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So today, as part of our audience members, we have 2 broad groups of people. We have local workforce investment areas with us who use what are called formula funds to submit or to do incumbent worker training, excuse me. You will be using this system to submit plans in the incumbent worker tracking system for your training that you're going to use the waiver and formula funds for. And then we have ARRA sector-based initiative grantees, and these are grantees who are all issued grants to do incumbent worker training. And so both of these audience members will be using the system. You'll be using it very much alike. There's only one difference, so we're going to take a look at that in a little bit. I want to mention the policy again. We're not covering the policy in depth. That's not my intent. But the policy does tell you what incumbent workers are. And this system is only used for incumbent workers. And I want to mention that because if you are doing a project, an ARRA sector-based initiative project, and you're working with WIA registrants, you will not use this system. You're only going to use this system for incumbent workers. They are not WIA registered, so they're 2 completely different things. And that's really the only point I want to make with this slide. The policy identifies when or what kind of a starting point for existing projects that you've already started must be entered into the system. And for that, the bottom line is that all ARRA sector-based initiative projects will be entered in this system. All of them will. And then for local workforce investment areas, I do know that DCEO, in particular Andy Ridgway, is going to be following up with each local workforce investment area that has already started projects to clarify if your project should be entered into this system. The policy also identifies grant recipients as being responsible for submitting plans. So each of you on this phone call today should be grant recipients. Right now, initially, the system is really aimed at just grantees only. We will make components available to you. So, for example, your employers, if you have an employer who can and will enter some of their own information, we'll provide that access. But initially, right now, the access is only for grantees. And incumbent workers. And again, I mentioned that that's part of the DCO policy. There is a definition of an incumbent worker, and it is a worker that's already employed by the business who is receiving upgraded skills in order to increase his or her skills in the occupation or to prepare for entry into a new or targeted occupation. And participating employers. So for this project, IWTS, participating employers are the employers that you're working with whose employees will be taking or participating with the training that you're offering through your projects. And we're going to take a look at the project process and workflow, and I'm just going to kind of glance over here because I noticed that Steve put a question after submitting the plan. At what point do you submit the add incumbent workers? Steve, you can do that immediately after submitting the plan, but what I really want to do is probably by Monday afternoon, I will have sent a follow-up email to all of you, and that follow-up email will just provide you some more instructions for that, just to make sure it's nice and easy for you. So let's take a look at the process steps. And don't worry if you can't, read all the detail on this little slide. But the gist of it is that there is a process for grant recipients. And we're going to walk through when we do the demo and show you how contacts are identified and how you submit your project plan. And within that plan, then you'll be identifying each of the employers that you're working with your project and all of the training activities and training providers. As we've already mentioned a couple times, of course, you'll be identifying your incumbent workers to participate with the training, but let's focus on just submitting our plan today. With your reports, you'll be providing incumbent worker outcomes. You'll submit reports to DCO on an ongoing basis until the end of your grant period. And then DCO uses that information to submit federal reports and other reports to, for example, the governor's office and many other interested parties who want to know what's going on with incumbent worker training in Illinois. As you can imagine, especially with the ARA money, there's a lot of people who want to know what kind of projects are out there and how they're helping the businesses and workers for our state. Now this slide shows the process workflow. And I know you, unless you have super duper vision, much better than mine, I doubt you can read all the little tiny letters. But what I want you to focus on are the shapes and the colors. This process flow chart shows two flows. On the left, number one on the left side shows how ARRA sector-based initiative projects flow. And then number two on the right side shows how local workforce and investment areas using formula funds, how their projects work with the system. And if you take a look, you'll see that really there's only one difference between the two. And that difference is with the ARA sector-based projects, you see a red box at the top. Now red means DCEO. And the only difference between the two processes is that for the ARRA sector-based initiatives projects, DCO will initiate them. And what that means is they log into IWTS, the Incumbent Worker Tracking System. They identify your grant in one of their systems called IWTS. They find your contact information, add a primary contact, and then you're automatically emailed a notice saying that they've initiated your project. All the rest is the same, and we're going to take a good look at that. And Andy Ridgway with DCEO just joined us.
Yep.
And hi, Andy.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. And Andy will be able to answer your questions concerning specifics on content for a training plan and those sorts of things. So when we get to the Q&A part, you can also ask questions of Andy Ridgway. Thanks, Andy.
Yep. Hi, guys.
So now you're seeing another process flow, and the point of this flow chart is to show that for some of your training plans, you may have multiple employers that you're working with, And if that is the case, the system will support it. Some of you may have very simple plans where you're only working with one employer, but we know many of you have plans where you're working with multiple employers. And then with those project plans, if you have employers with multiple work sites where employees report to work on a daily basis, you will also be able to identify all those work sites. Also, if you have multiple courses or trainings that you're offering, you'll be able to identify all of the training and all of the training locations. So the system is set up to accommodate both a simple project with one employer and one training location, and those projects that are more complex and have multiple employers, multiple work sites, multiple trainings, and multiple training locations. And here what I want to stress is for the employer work sites, you are going to identify every work site where employees are receiving training as a result of your project. All of the information that we're going to look at today, all of the resources and the IWTS system are all on IllinoisWorkNet.com. Now each of you most likely, I hope, already set up your Workforce Professionals account. If you didn't, you will need to have a Workforce Professionals account to get into the system. And you can see some information on your screen here that talks about that. And another thing that I want to point out here is the data security information. You're going to see this repeated on some of the materials that you can download and use. There's an employer information sheet, for example. And what employers, and I'm sure others want to know, is that Illinois WorkNet is secured. So the system is actually located in private sector data centers that are secured. The public cannot walk into those buildings. The system is secured with an SSL certificate that's a high-grade certificate signed off by VeriSign, and SSNs are encrypted. And this is the kind of information you're going to want to share with employers. And I see a question from Kristen. If LEAs are using ARRA, not formula funds, do we use one or two? For that one, DCO has initiated your project, Kristen, and when you log into the system, you're going to see that they've already initiated it for you. So with your case, you'll be able to do both. You'll see your ARRA project already there initiated for you, and you'll be able to add new projects using your formula funds if your LEA chooses to do so. So let's take a look at a couple of background information on submitting a project plan. And again, we're going to go online and do a demo and show you how to do that. So for right now, I want to stress that this system is really for grantees. Grantees are responsible for submitting the training plans, and you'll have access to do a number of things. You know, right now, our focus is to submit our project plans. We'll be developing reports that you can pull, knowing that all your information is always updated in WorkNet in real time. So you and DCO both can get information as needed, and we'll kind of come back to you on that topic to see what kind of reports you need us to pre-develop for you. And we'll also allow you, of course, to export this information so you can work with it however you need to with Excel. And then we're going to have the DCO staff as well who can see all of your projects. Now for each of you, you're only going to see your own projects. For Kristen will only see her formula projects and her ARA grant project. Won't see anybody else's. So you only see your own projects, but DCO will in fact see all of them, including the status of those projects, so they can run reports at any given time and provide the state and many interested parties interested in this information about your projects. So you can see there's quite a few items here that DCO can do as well. And I really want to get to this, the status. So when you start to create your project plan, the system is going to automatically define your project status. As I already mentioned, DCO will be initiating the ARRA sector-based initiative projects, and those will have a status called initiated. Once you begin to work on a plan, and the first time you save anything in your plan, regardless of whether or not you're a local workforce investment area or a sector-based project, once you save anything, it becomes in process. You do not have to finish your plan in one sitting. You might do it in a day, or you might come back to it to the next day, or you might have it done and somebody else has to approve it. Until you submit it, it remains in process. Once you just review it and decide to submit it, the status becomes submitted. And the system is always updating the status. You do not do that. It's all automatic. And also, while these processes are occurring, the system is automatically emailing the primary contact for each of the projects. So each project will have a primary contact who will get information, and you can change that contact and make it whoever is appropriate. You could have multiple staff who can log in and work on plans and see plans and print plans. But right now, the way the system's set up, there's a primary contact and they get all the notifications. Once you submit your plan to DCO, they will take a look at it, and they're either going to review it and request clarification or accept it. If they review it to accept clarification, the status will automatically change, and the primary contact for the grant will be notified to read the comments and make whatever changes are requested. If it's accepted, that means that DCO staff has looked at your plan and they're good with it. And you will receive an email notification, and when you log in, you will see your status is accepted. Now, an accepted project plan is a snapshot in time. When we make a plan, we all know that's what we want to do based on the information we have at the time, and we all know that plans change. Now, once you submit your plan, it will become kind of locked in. You can add to your plan because we know that many plans are to identify additional employers or to develop the curriculum and then define all of the courses that will be, for example, with your training. So you may not have all of that information, so you could add to it. But if you need to go back and change your original plan, you're going to request to modify, and that will be done by clicking. When you request to modify, DCO will see that information, they'll look at it, and they will either say, sure, you can modify it, or not modify it. Either way, once you go to modify, the statuses still apply. And then the other option is to cancel. Not muted. Okay, guys, I'm looking at my, so some of you can hear me and some of you can't. to that. You have that as a reference. Uh-oh, Precious missed some stuff. Precious, I think we're going to be okay. Okay, we're going to do a demo in a minute. But before we do, the PowerPoint referred to this project status listing, and this is where the sound went haywire on us. And if you look at that, I think it repeats or clarifies what I said. If you didn't download it, I'm going to make sure you can at the end of the meeting. And then another one of the materials that you can download is the employer information sheet. And this is something that we're your projects. Now, when I log in, I can see a query that you will not see because you don't need to search because you only have 1 or 2 projects. I'm going to click on search because DCO has initiated the key sector projects. Andy, are they all initiated now?
Um, I, I believe so. Those are, I, I don't know if Ray Williams has been putting the rest of them in
Yeah,
or
well, earlier in the week there were only 4 left to do, so I'm going to assume they're all initiated unless they're kind of be aware of.
I haven't
So
heard anything.
if you're a key sector initiative grantee, you should have received an email if you're the primary contact already notifying you that your project has been initiated. So you can see we can see all of them, and there's quite a few. And that would be one of the main reasons why we built the system. There's a lot to track. We're expecting, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's around like 9,000 incumbent workers to be
Hmm.
participating.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So this will really help us to keep an eye on that information. So if you're an ARA sector-based initiative, you will only see your project or projects. If you're an LWIA and you were given a grant for that ARA key sector initiative, you'll see that. If you're an LWIA that you were not given an ARA grant, you're going to click on Add a New Project. Add a New Project. It's right here at the top of the page. Now at the top of your page, you're going to see some information, including a link to important resources related to the system, and that's where all the print documents are located. And there's a link to more instructions here. And throughout submitting your plan, you're going to see that there's instructions available. What I'm going to do is click on an existing plan. For the sake of time, I do not want to have to retype an entire plan. So I'm just going to go ahead and select a plan. Now, when you go to do your plan, it will pretty much be a blank slate. What we're going to look at, again, for the sake of time, is one that's already done so you could see it as an example. And I'm going to walk through how a plan is completed and submitted. Now, notice the status on the screen here for this plan is accepted. And when you log in, you're going to see that status that we reviewed. Look on the left-hand side of the screen. These are all the components of a project plan. When you do your plan, you're going to walk through it. We use the term wizard here. You're going to go step by step, and you're going to walk through every one of these components. And some of them it's going to go quite quickly, actually, depending on how big your project is. But notice here, I already have click for instructions, and look at the information link. So every time I click on an information link, I get more information. Anytime there's a hyperlink, I get more information. Now, this system is connected to IWTS. That is a DCO system where your grants are entered. So we're automatically picking up your grant title. It comes in with that title. If that title is not appropriate enough or descriptive enough for the project, you can see that you can change it. Our system is assigning a project number. It's merely a sequential number. Just like with other online forms, whenever you see red, red means required. Pretty much everything that every form, or every field, excuse me, is really required in these project plans. Here, if it's black, it's probably because it already came from IWDS. Or it's because it's dependent upon your type of project. Now notice the DCO project contact is automatically identified. In this case, it's Andy. And if you click for more details, you know what? You can definitely find Andy because there's his phone number and there's his email address. You can see the project status. Again, this is system generated. You can look at the project status sheet and you can see they reviewed it and accepted it. You will type in a start date and you will type in an end date. If you're not sure what that means, you click on the information links. I need to point out a couple of important fields here. This says, is green initiative yes or no? If your project has a green component, and if you don't know what that means, you can click on the information bubble and it will explain it. If it is a green initiative, you need to say yes. As everyone is aware, green is a hot topic, and this is something that DCO is frequently asked to report on. Just below that question, it says, does this project have occupation upgrades, yes or no? Really, really important, really, really important, because when you begin to build your plan, it builds upon, later in the plan, it builds upon prior information. And that's why it's going to be really important to follow the order. You must follow, so if you're a note taker, write this down, follow the order. The plan builds for you so you don't have to repeat things. You don't want to go back. You want to get it right the first time. So if you have a project that has an occupation upgrade, meaning that at least one occupation associated with this project will receive an upgrade, which typically means an occupation with more responsibility or maybe more pay, but it's an occupation change considered to be an upgrade from the prior occupation, you're going to say yes. This affects your project later on, and we'll take a look in a little bit at what that means. It will automatically populate your grant amount from IWDS, but you're still going to type in the actual project cost. If you don't know what that means, click on the information link. If you have formula funds and you're going to do several projects with your formula funds, the system will automatically calculate that and give you a balance. Funds use and needs benefits are text boxes where you describe your project, and you've probably noticed that all of these crosswalk to the old way that used to be on a spreadsheet on paper. Once you're done, you're going to click Save. And there's no save here because this is already saved, but if you're a note taker, this is really important. Save, save, save. And the first time you save something, your project is in process. And once you save it, you can come back tomorrow or Monday or whatever day and work on it some more. So save and click Next to move to the next step. And it will take you in order. Write down the order that we looked at on that left-hand listing. It will automatically take you down that listing. The next part of the project is to identify the related industries. And you know what? This was not a good plan to pick because it's accepted. So you know what? I'm going to go back to the incumbent worker page, and I'm going to pick one that's in process. I just learned a lesson there. Yeah, Jerome, the techie on the phone that I forgot to introduce just said, Jeannie, you can't use an accepted project. It's locked down. Remember, you even said that. So let me get one that's in process. I have one that I've been picking on, and I don't know why I just didn't pick on that one today, because it's been a great one to pick on. So I'm just going to go right back to it and pick on it. I'm going to select this project, and I'm going to head straight away to where we left off. We had provided our basic grant information, and we click Save and Next. So I'm going to click Next. And now we're going to identify the related industry. So if you look at the left menu, you're going to see that as I click Next, I'm simply going to the next item. This is where you're going to identify all of the NAICS codes that apply. If you don't know what a NAICS code is, we have a glossary of terms, and if you mouse over anywhere you see a G and that hyperlink, you're going to see the definition. If you click on it, you'll go to our glossary of terms. You're going to select all NAICS codes that apply by clicking the category of the NAICS code and clicking Search. When you do that, it's going to give you a listing of all the codes that fell under that category. You can select one code, you can select all of them if it's applicable, or you could just select a couple. So the point is you select whatever is related to your project. Once you select those codes, you click Select Check Records. When you click Select Check Records, it automatically adds it to your plan, and they show at the top of your plan where I'm highlighting right now with my mouse whenever it's selected. If you have multiple codes in different categories, as you add them, you simply then pick another category, click Search. It's going to display all the codes that fall under that additional category. Again, you could select one, you could select multiple, or you could select all. Click Select Check Records. It will add it to your plan, and click Next to move on to the next step. And you're going to see this theme. It's either, oh, hey, Jerome. don't let me forget that I checked all those, okay? I'm going to have to go back and uncheck them. And go to the next step. So moving right down here, down the link list on the left-hand side, we went on to the organization information. And, oh, I didn't click save. Oh, good, Jerome. Okay, is this organization an employer? Some ARRA grantees that receive the grants directly are in fact the employer. If that is the case, you're definitely going to want to click yes. It will affect your plan later and make it easier for you to complete. LWIAs, you will never say yes here. You'll never be the employer. This is only if your organization is the actual employer whose workers will be trained. You're going to want to say yes. You'll see it pre-populated with information that came from our database. And when it comes from our database, it may or may not be complete. If the fields were incomplete and they're red, you're going to have to fill them in. You're going to identify your agency type. And then when you're done with that, you're going to save any information if you had to change it or add to it. If you didn't change it or add to it, you don't have to do anything. But once you select your agency type, click Save, and then click Contacts. Now, the contacts initially are going to be for ARA sector-based initiative, whomever, for example, Andy or Ray, whoever initiated your project, they're going to be whoever was on the grant application as a primary contact. That person received an email notice, and then they can log in and access their plan in the system. So Joseph logged in, and he accessed his plan, and then he added another staff person. So if you have multiple staff who need to get to your plan to see it, work on it, review it, whatever, the primary contact needs to add all those staff members here. And once you do that, they'll automatically get access. They all have to have Workforce Professionals accounts. So first, have them set up their account. Once they set up their account, you'll just click search and then search by their email address. It will search our database, our Workforce Professionals database for them, and again, they need to have a Workforce Professionals account and use their work email. So if they provided that, it'll search for it, and then you're going to click Add. It will identify all of the contacts up So I bet everyone's, predicting what I'm going to say. They're saying, oh, I bet she's either going to say save it or click select check to records. And you're right. And we're going to do that again because now we've moved on to project target occupations. Now, target occupations are all occupations served by your project. So it's not all occupations that the employer has across the entire company, but it's all of the occupations participating with your project. So you're going to select each one that applies by clicking on the category, clicking search, and when you click search, you're going to get a listing of all of the target occupation codes. And by the way, these are called SOC codes. If you don't know what a SOC code is, you click on information. You next. So when I click next, now I'm going to go to target upgrade occupation. So remember earlier I said important, write this note down. The question was, are there target upgrade occupations with this project, yes or no? And so if there's occupation upgrades and you said yes, you're going to see this screen. If you said no, you're going to see a screen that says Jerome's probably typing, but Jerome, I think I just unmuted you.
Jeannie, no,
Yeah.
I haven't updated anything here yet.
Okay, so this is going to be updated. Right now it's forcing you to first do a search in our database to see if that employer is in there. But we know that it's likely at first these employers are not in our database. Later, 6 months from now, a year from now, it will be helpful to be able to search for them because we don't want you to have to retype everything. So you do a search right now. If you don't find them, you it says, is this a work site? And earlier I mentioned that you're going to have to identify every work site address where employees report who will be trained or participate with your training plan. And again, if this is the work site, click yes, but it isn't always the work site. For example, you might be working with a human resources representative that's in an administrative office, and at the administrative office, nobody's getting the training. So this is simply the primary contact information for your employer. But if it is a work site, definitely say yes, because it will then identify it as a work site, and it's going to add some more fields to this form for you automatically. And you're going to provide work site required information. So at the work site, we need to know, for example, how the employer match will be provided. Enter the total number of employees at the location. So that's at a work site. Enter the total number of employees to receive the training at the work site. So there's a difference. And you'll only do that for the work sites, and then provide a meaningful description of the impact of the training at this job. So you have a text box where you do that. Now, if you have multiple work sites, you can see that when we got to employer, we got these little tabs that show up, and we move left to right, always left to right, and we're going to add multiple work sites for any of the employers. We want to add our employers, and then we click on the employer to select them, and when we do that, the tabs show up, and when the tabs show up, we can move across the tabs, and we can provide the details about that employer. So you add your employers by clicking Search Add Site. You type in the information. You'll see all the employers on this page. Slowly. And then when you do, Jerome, are you there? Go ahead and click
I'm here.
Next. So once we add our employer information, we go to our training course information. And for our training course information, first of all, you're going to see this page with instructions. And it has the glossary of terms, again, defining what a course is. Some of your projects may have one course, some may have multiple courses. For example, I know one of the area projects is one course. It's a 6-month course that is for assembly line employees to increase their skills and make changes on the assembly line. The course is composed of 6 sessions, but they have to complete the course to be identified as successfully completing the project. So a course is determined by what they have to complete to show a successful outcome. A session is the detail that's provided about a course. Now here you're also going to identify the SIP code. This is the classification of instructional programs. And we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and click Next to go to the course information. And again, this project is already built, so it includes all of their courses, and you can see in this case, there are 5 courses. You may only have one. And when you click Next, you're going to type in the title, a description, the provider name, and then just below that, you're going to click here to add update credentials in this course. Now, this is a pop code. This is the classification of instructional program. If you don't know what that is, you can click on the Still doesn't have a definition. I'm going to click the drop down and see the categories for a zip code. Click search, and it will give you a listing of all of the zip codes. You select the classification of instructional program that is correct. And I do want to point out here that if this zip code is new to you and you're looking, some of them I think are fairly obvious. But if it's difficult to select, then you should contact your grant contact whose name you saw earlier. It's on grant information that came with your project. You're going to see a contact with a phone number and email, and you can talk to them and maybe get some insight as to what is most appropriate. So you're going to add that information and click Save. Definitely click Save. And then when you do, you're going to see a tab. So for employers and courses, you see tabs, just like you did with the grantee, and they always go left to right. So I'm going to click on the training session, and here's where we're going to have the detail about that course. And the detail includes things such as instructions, the schedule, additional information, instructor contact information, and location. Now all of this is required information, and it is not available yet, but all this is going to be used very soon to provide you with a link to a training information web page that you can email to your participants if you wish to use it, and provide them information on where they go, what they bring, the schedule for the training, all those sorts of things. So we've gone through the components of a training plan. We've walked all the way through them, and after adding all of our components of the training plan, we're going to click Next, and we're going to review our plan. Now, you don't have to review the plan the day you do it. Again, it will be available to you. But when you're ready to review it before you submit it to DCO, you're going to come to this page and you're going to click the link that says Review Your Project Plan. So you're going to click the link to review your project plan. And when you do that, it's going to open in a new window, and all those things that you selected and all those things you typed in are now compiled into one view. So we have our project information that came from IWTS and that we typed in on the very first screen. We have our credentials, our sectors, our industries, occupations, and our upgrades. We have all of our employers. This one has a lot of employers, so I'm just going to like scroll. We're going to have all of our employers. We're going to have all of our work sites, and we're going to have all of our courses. So somewhere down here, we also have project courses. Now, if you have Adobe PDF installed on your machine, and if you just print this, if you just send this to a printer, it will print like a report. So it's printer friendly. The banner won't print, the left menu won't print, only your plan will print. So if you need to have a paper copy, it's printer friendly. And if you have Adobe and you click print, you can click on your Adobe option if you have it installed, and I'm sure many of you do. Then you click print, and you could save the plan as a PDF file. So if you want to just save it because maybe you want to email just the plan to someone, maybe you're going to provide it to the employer or some other individuals or a committee you're working with, whatever. So you click PDF, it will generate the PDF file, and you can see you're going to have a plan formatted with all of the information you selected, the employers, the courses, the training information, all of it is there. So once you review your plan, you'll click Next if you're good with it. And it's optional, but if you have a question, maybe you went ahead and selected some codes and you're just not 100% sure, for example, you can type question or comment here. And when you do, and you go to submit your plan to DCO, they will verbatim see whatever you type here. So these are optional notes to the DCO grant manager working on your grant. Whatever you type here will be emailed verbatim to them when they are notified that you've submitted your plan. That way, when they're reviewing their plan, they could see your comment or question. Okay, so that's an option. So you would click Next, and when you click Next, you can submit your plan. The system will validate it and make sure all of the required fields are filled out. Before you submit your plan, you're going to have at least one employer and at least one course, and you're going to have to fill out all of the required information. Once you click Submit, DCO is automatically notified. They see the update in real time. They could conceivably, you could create a plan, they could review it and approve it all in the same day. That's very possible. So I think I covered everything with submitting a plan. I'm going to go back to the meeting, and I'm going to stop my sharing. And you're going to see gray, gray, gray for just a minute. And here we are back to the chat on the left-hand side of your screen, and I have some polling questions open. And I want to go ahead and open up the phone lines. And what I'm going to do is open floor request mode. So callers, if you have a question that you want to ask over the phone, what you're going to do when I open floor request mode is hit *#. And when you do that, you'll automatically get the floor, and you can begin to speak, and we'll all be able to hear you. So you'll hear open floor request.
The floor mode is on. To request the floor,
And it's
enter star, then pound.
And once you hit *#, if you begin to speak, we'll be able to hear you. It'll automatically let you have the floor. So I've opened the floor up, and let's see, do we have anything new coming in the chat? At least if you don't have any questions, regardless of whether or not you're listening via speakers or the phone, and I see somebody has requested the floor, 630-353-9254. Go ahead.
My question is, we are the grantee, but we are the employer directly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working with the University of Illinois to conduct all of our training.
Sharon? Is that?
Anderson, yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So
Through this process, for all the people that do these sort of things all the time, I apologize for my ignorance, but
No.
can they help me through a lot of this process?
Yes.
Is this the one that they can have access to?
Yeah. You can just give Sharon access. As a matter of fact, we may have already done that for you because I know she needs it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so I'll double check. Because I'm well aware we've communicated with Sharon, and I know that you're designating Sharon to handle this, and Sharon can log in and do everything that you just saw.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, great. Thanks for
Thank
asking.
you.
No problem. All right. So if we have another question, go ahead, callers, and let's see what we have here on the chat. Will you need to provide a zip code of no college course? Yes. The zip codes, I had the same question. We built the system because I thought zip codes were for high school career ed courses and for college courses, but it turns out they're not. And there are zip codes for general kinds of courses, general information. So when you go to do your plan, you are going to click on select the zip code, and then select the category that makes the most sense for your project, and then take a look and see if you see something that makes sense. And if it doesn't, definitely contact your DCO grant manager and just tell them you need a little help, and they will help you. And I don't know, Andy, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, with the zip code, you like you don't have to just use your best discretion on that. We just started trying to find a way to track this information. So, I mean, yeah, you need to be as accurate as you can, but there's not like I don't know. I know a lot of training falls in between the cracks, and so you got to use your own discretion on where you think this falls, and we'll review that too. But yeah, just use your discretion on that, and then we'll check, and if you will most likely be close with it.
Yeah, because really, because I thought the same thing, but then when I started looking at them, I realized that actually, there really are, descriptions in there, if it's not college course, that do cover topics, including the healthcare we were just looking at, which were not college courses at all. So I hope that answers your question. And then Kathleen asked, the project plan must be approved prior. That's right. And does the deadline remain April 30th? Well, Kathleen, we're just launching the system, and, DCO is well aware of that. As a matter of fact, we intend to get with them early next week to come up with a date for follow-up webinars for the quarterly report. And I don't think there's any intent that it's going to be a problem, if it's after April 30th for this first round. And I don't know if Andy wants to add to that.
I think we've kind of discussed this, and given the fact that I believe the policy says you have 30 days from the launch to get it in, and then obviously you won't know how to do quarterly reports until we do the webinar on that. We're our thinking is for this go around, since quarterly reports are due April 30th, generally, we'll go ahead and give you the 30 days from today to get those in. So that should be plenty of time. I mean, if we need to make adjustments, we can, but I think that shouldn't be a problem for most people. But that'll give you a little. You should have plenty of time to compile them, and you'll be able to copy and paste everything from the way you used to do it into the system. So there's no reason you couldn't have the quarterly reports ready and then just be ready to put them in once you get go through the webinar on it.
Okay, so, well, thanks, Kathleen. Glad that answered your question. I see some more questions being typed. Again, the floor is still open, so if you want to ask a question over the telephone, it's *# to ask the question. And let's see here. Kristen, I work for a WIA service provider that has a grant. Get direct access? Yes, you do. Works a service provider that has the grant. So so for the sector-based projects, somebody was identified with their grant information when they submitted that grant. Whoever that primary contact is, whoever self-identified themselves as a primary contact, would have been the one that DCO identified when they initiated the project. So if you want to type in the project name, then we can check and see, who's been given access. But that primary contact can add you or anyone else who is going to be designated to have responsibility for entering or tracking or viewing this information. And Susan, what does it mean if one of the areas along the left-hand side is in red in the Illinois WorkNet project plan? I'm not sure. Jerome, do we have red on the left side? Oh, is that if you try to submit your plan and it's not complete? Jerome, are you still there?
I am still here. I know last time I sat on a webinar we had green. I'm not sure about the red highlighting. Give me a second, I'll ask somebody and I'll be right
okay,
back.
yeah, because I'm not, I don't know that red has any significance, so I'm not sure. Well, we'll check with our programming crew and see what that means. And is a complete financial accounting of training costs required in the plan?
Yeah, I can take that one, or at least for the formula ones, we need to check and make sure all the costs are allowable under the policy. So with this, I would say yes. You should probably break it down into what all is going in. So yeah, Mike just type that in there
hi,
too.
Mike.
So
I didn't know Mike was on with us.
Yeah, I guess that answered his question there.
Okay, but you don't do that. Our system is not the financial reporting system, so you put a total cost, but in WorkNet you don't do the breakdown.
Right,
So,
you just describe it, I guess, in the narrative.
Yeah, right. So maybe a little bit difference there, because this almost sounds to me like a budget, line item budget, and so you do not enter that in WorkNet. You put the total, and then you still have your financial reporting
Right, right. It
to
doesn't
do, which is a
substitute that.
totally separate, right?
Yeah, but we just want to
Okay.
be able to have a narrative on what all is being spent within.
Okay.
So yeah, yep.
And Susan, okay, so Susan says project industries in red. If you want to type in which project is yours, oh, if there's red on the left, that means something's missing. So you must have started your plan, Susan. I would have to know which plan it is to know the status if you've, maybe you went to review it. And when you go to review it, the system automatically validates it, checks it to see what's missing. And what Jerome's saying is if it's red, it means that something is missing, so you'll want to click back on that section and add your project industries. Thanks, Jerome. I see a couple more people are typing, and I'm looking for more callers, but nobody wants to talk on the phone. Let's go ahead and see what these others are typing. And while they're typing, those meeting materials that I referred to earlier are available just below the chat pod in case you were, needing to get those. They're also available from the Workforce Pathway. I'm certain things will be updated as the rubber hits the road with this project. As I mentioned earlier, we did have people test it, but the fact is when the rubber hits the road, things always change. We're always going to find something. So we'll let you know when things are updated, but it's best to get the information directly from our Workforce Professionals Pathway where we will keep everything current. And let's just take a quick look at the polling questions. And I saw people typing, but I'm still not seeing anything in the chat. So if you want to type something in there, definitely hit the little arrow to the right of the chat box so we can get your message and answer your questions. And, do we have a caller who wants to speak? Okay, who's there?
This is Richard Colazzo. I'm sitting here with Mike Balsick. Actually, he stepped out.
Okay.
Question I had was piggyback on someone who had typed something in earlier regarding provider or agency access. In our case, we have our agencies, a number of them who will be looking to do the Incumbent project. So we should go in, set them up as a secondary, and they could have access to continue developing it once we initiate.
Yeah, early on I specifically asked that about the city of Chicago because I know you're always different.
No.
And yeah, no. And when I think we need to have a separate conversation because we probably need to set things up a little bit differently.
Okay.
But yes, we can definitely work with you. We need to know who, if you have specific providers who are going to be doing the formula, how you're going to do it so we can come up with the best solution for the city of Chicago. So thanks for asking.
All right. Yeah, we missed a couple of minutes in the beginning, so if you discussed that, I didn't catch it. Sorry.
No, we didn't. So it was a perfect question. And Richard, tell me your last name again.
Colazzo. Collazo.
Okay, so I can follow up with you and Mike on that.
All righty. And
All
you
right.
also indicate the last question I had was a certificate of completion.
Yes.
Is that just what it sounds like?
Yes.
Certificate of completion, okay.
Yes, it means you've completed.
It's all righty.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Straightforward. Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. So let's see here. Do we have some more questions? Linda. Hi, Linda. Do we still need to include training information in IWDS? Also, all of my reports are prior to November, so I'm assuming all the remaining quarterly reports will be on the old format. So.
And Jeannie, I just typed in an answer to that.
Oh, okay. Okay. There you go. So look at Andy's answer, and then for the IWDS entries, so for those who have new projects, you will not do duplicate entries into IWDS. So that will not be happening. You'll do it in an Illinois workNet, and we will give IWDS all the data that IWDS needs for reporting. So you will not be doing any duplicate work in IWDS. And we do not yet have some of the details, okay? Can we still fill the project? Yeah, so it's a plan. So you should provide as much information as possible about your plan for the course. And then you can come back in and adjust it as needed and add your course or courses. So if you're ready to do your plan, you can go ahead and provide as much information as possible. and you can talk about that. And then if it's too vague, I suppose when DCO reviews it, they will comment on it and let you know. So hopefully that answered Emily's question. And let's see, do we have anything else coming here? Check the phones one again. I don't see anyone requesting the floor. Do we have any other questions? Okay. Each of you who were identified as a primary contact by DCEO should already have access. On Monday, there were only 4 projects left to be initiated, so I'm assuming by now they all are initiated unless there was some kind of an issue, and the grantee should be aware of that. Local workforce investment areas, right now, if you're an Illinois WorkNet coordinator or you're recognized as on staff as an AWEA or WIB director, you have access, and we'll need to know if additional people need access, and we can just simply, or you can add them by clicking on contacts, searching for them, and adding them, and that would be our preference. So you can give additional staff access if it's not your responsibility, and City of Chicago will certainly follow up with you. So if there aren't any questions, does somebody else on the phone have something that they wanted to say? Hello? Someone else on the phone?
Yes, it's Richard, one more time.
Oh, hi, Richard, again.
Okay. A simple one here. As we were moving in and out, I saw something regarding where we click off and then you get a response that says approved. So it sounds like we need to receive the approval before we move on our plans, or are we still with the ability to move on a plan as we're, when we go to submit it?
Yeah, you're still will have the ability to move on your plan, but you do have to submit it.
Okay.
And they may have some comments, and you may have to go back in and change something,
Sure.
or they may not have comments, and then they would simply accept it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I don't know if you have anything to add.
That you answered it.
Okay. I'm getting good at this. Okay, let's see. Well, if there aren't any other questions, again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your time. You can send any questions after today to the info@email. You can contact the DCO staff person identified in your plan. If you have any technical issues, please let us know so we can resolve them so you can get your plan done. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.